am Sutekh the Destroyer. Where I tread, I leave nothing but dust and darkness. I find that good.
The first time I saw Pyramids of Mars, I distinctly remember feeling slightly underwhelmed, probably because it has this reputation as being one of the greatest classic Doctor Who stories despite not being particularly clever or original. You know, there's no gripping social commentary going on here or really unique ideas. But having said that, I have since come to appreciate the story a lot more on its own merits, because for what it is doing, it is very well executed. Going into an intricate plot breakdown of Pyramids of Mars honestly seems unnecessary, since the plot is, in essence, rather elegant in its simplicity. Essentially, there's an ancient being with godlike powers named Sutekh who is imprisoned beneath an Egyptian pyramid. He plans to escape using his servant disguised as a reanimated corpse, and he must be stopped at all costs, because if he does escape, he will destroy everything. He's just that powerful. And that's all you really need to know. There's no greater thematic significance to anything. At a stretch, you could perhaps read it as an imperialist critique, with how the whole sequence of events is started by Marcus Scarman, an enlightened white British man ignorantly blundering into a culture he doesn't understand without appreciating the consequences, but that's not really the point. The point is, evil villain must be stopped. And as much as I do like a good bit of social commentary, something that was certainly not in short supply during the John Pertwee era, I also think there is something to be said for the kind of storytelling where there's just a bad guy and you have to go shoot him. The reason why it works especially well in Pyramids of Mars is that the serial does a very good job of conveying to the audience just how much of a threat Sutekh is. I mean, there is a reason he's often considered the greatest one-time villain in Doctor Who history. While it may pose a lot of logical questions, the scene in which the Doctor shows Sarah Jane and Lawrence an alternate version of the future where Sutekh's plan succeeds and the Earth is an uninhabited wasteland is a devastatingly effective way to establish what is at stake. Quite often the most threatening antagonists are ironically the ones where you only get to see fleeting glimpses of their ultimate power, and the fact that Sutekh is able to use his telekinetic abilities to enact his plans and to murder multiple people, all while imprisoned in a force field, means that when the Doctor is trapped inside Sutekh's chamber in Part 4, there is a real sense of danger, even when you know with hindsight that obviously the Doctor is not going to die. But you can just tell that Sutekh is taking enormous sadistic delight in having someone be completely at his mercy after thousands of years of imprisonment. He could snap the Doctor's body right there and then if he wanted to, and he's really relishing in that power. This all relates to another aspect of the story that's very effective, which is the Doctor's alienness. A lot of this naturally comes from Tom Baker's performance as much as it does the script, but we see how his bedside manner is decidedly cold, particularly toward Lawrence Scarman, who is struggling to come to terms with the fact that Sutekh's servant is walking around disguised as his dead brother. Indeed, at one point Sarah completely loses it with the Doctor. Yet it is clear that his flippant demeanour does not come from a lack of care or compassion. It's more that he's looking at things on a much bigger scale, and the scene where they look into alternate time really helps to explain the Doctor's outlook and put you inside his head. Basically, this is the mature way of portraying the character as morally ambiguous without the need for any "am I a good man, Clara" speeches. If there's one aspect of Pyramids of Mars I would critique, it's that the final episode is structured a bit weirdly. There's this whole emphasis placed on the Doctor and Sarah needing to complete a series of intelligence tests to get to the Eye of Horus before Sutekh does, but that ultimately goes nowhere and doesn't really pay off, since Sutekh is ultimately defeated by an 11th hour Deus Ex Machina instead. The thing is, even though they may feel a bit redundant, these scenes are still a pleasure to watch, simply because Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen work so well as a double act. There's a reason why many consider them the strongest Doctor-companion pairing in the history of the show. More modern fans of Doctor Who will of course be familiar with Sarah Jane from her appearances in the original Russell T Davies era, and partly for that reason I would argue that Pyramids of Mars is the ideal introductory story for fans of the revived era who wish to dip their toe into the classic series. Its simplicity probably also works in its favour in that regard. While something like, say, Inferno may be a technically better story with more to offer, it is also more experimental, and therefore less representative of the overall experience of watching classic Who, if indeed there is such a thing. Also, Inferno is 7 parts long, which I can definitely appreciate might be off-putting to a newcomer. For an introductory story, what you really want is something self-contained and not too long, which also doesn't stray too far from convention. Having one of the most iconic Doctors also helps. If by some chance there is anyone here who has not yet seen any classic Doctor Who or knows someone who has only watched the modern series, then I'd suggest you give Pyramids of Mars a go, or share it as a recommendation. I mean, it's only 4 20-minute episodes, so you've really no excuse. Go ahead and check it out, you won't regret it. I'm Midnight, and I travel in space and time. And trains. If you would like to support this channel, then head over to my eBay store Colt Coven, where I sell books, media, and other nerdy things. Send a message with your order and you can also get a shout out in an upcoming video. Thank you.